Well, greetings. This is the Timeshare Traveler. It's episode 127. And this is which Hawaiian island is best to choose or best for you. And the five islands I'm going to compare are Kauai, Oahu, Molokai, Maui, and Hawaii. And I've been on all of them over the last year. I've been in Hawaii about 6 months, but I'll go into that detail later. And I'll give you a summary of what I like best about each island. Again, I can't decide for you, but I can give you what I see as the top things. And I'll give you comparison criteria of how I compare them, and then I have a comparison chart across all the islands. And then lastly, I have a list of the timeshares I own. I'll go through how many are on each of the islands, so that can help you depending on what timeshares you might own, which island might work best for you. Without further ado, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my channel, but hang in there. I'll be right back to go into detail. Hi, this is Cliff, and I'm the Timeshare Traveler. Welcome to my channel. The purpose of my channel is to educate those who love traveling in timeshares. I've been an owner for 15 plus years at timeshare ownership. I have elite ownership with Marriott, Hilton, and Worldmark. I have published over 100 timeshare video reviews, and I've published over 95 timeshare tips. I can be found on Facebook at Timeshare Trav, at Twitter, Timeshare Trav, and on the web at www.timesharetraveler.com. Well, he's back. Again, all the islands. I've been on all five islands in the last year. I spent 6 months. I've spent a year traveling, but 6 months of those I spent in Hawaii. I really love it here. And these are my opinions, but I stayed on timeshares in all of them, so there's all are available and various different configurations on how I did that. Again, I'm at the end of this. At the end of the list, I'll give you the timeshares by brand, how many are located, and kind of in general where they are in the islands. But now to the next step. My favorite part, and by the way, there are no bad choices on any of the islands. You can't, I suppose it can be wrong for you, but not really wrong. But I'll go through what I like best on all the islands, and this is a summary to it. So for Kauai, and I'm going in order of furthest north to furthest south. I love the lush and green coffee and rum tasting. Pili Coast hike is supposedly, some people rate it the best, one of the top 10 hikes in the world. That's at the end of the coast. You have to get a certificate to do that, but it's a wonderful, wonderful hike. So that's kind of the Waimea Canyon, and there's lots of waterfalls because there's a lot of rain in some parts of the island, and therefore you get the waterfalls. And so that's Kauai for me. Oahu. Food choices, because you're in a big city, so you got all the food choices you can get. Dancing, if you want to do that, there's plenty of places with dance floors and so forth. City lights, you can get the beach view, or you can get the city light view, and it has, with the high rises, it has kind of an Asian feel to it because a lot of high rises, or maybe even a New York City view. I'm not sure. I'm not competent to say about that. But there's a lot of mountains and museums, so you have a lot of history of the islands available to you, and also World War II Arizona Monument. Then on the right next to that is the Molokai, which is almost the complete opposite. That's peace and quiet. It's there's less than 10,000 people on the island that live there. I don't know what it is with the tourists. Really small town feel. There's one main town. There's a couple smaller ones. Quiet hikes is probably what I would say, or just sitting on the beach watching the waves roll in. It's really just calming, peaceful. I had a wonderful time there. Then on to Maui. It's kind of a hybrid of Oahu. It's a little bit less crowded. It doesn't have a giant city on it. Again, it's probably good food choices. You should do the Hana Drive if you get a chance. It's kind of that kind of a remote resort view, and there's a black sand beach there. I love Kihei. My favorite place in Maui is actually Kihei, which is not the main tourist area. It's kind of like a Southern California beach town, but with a Hawaii twist, if that helps for those of you who aren't familiar with Hawaii but familiar with California. And you can actually go to the dormant volcano and get some amazing views at sunset, watching the sunset up on the mountain, where you see down to where the places are, and also out into the ocean with clouds and everything. It's pretty amazing. And then onto the Big Island, also known as Hawaii, the same name as the state. You kind of got the quiet resort areas in the Waikoloa area. You can do coffee and chocolate tasting, and I think there's even macadamia nut. Mauna Loa has a tasting facility there where you can see the farms. Again, I talk about this kind of stuff when it's regards to where you can actually see the farms, not just where you can go taste coffee or taste various things. There is Kona, which has a bit of a nightlife feel to it. And there's the history in Hilo, where it talks about the tsunami and all kinds of things. It's kind of a cool little town. Almost reminds me of an Oregon town in the sense there's a lot of rain and the buildings are kind of smaller. Not like downtown Portland, but old Portland, I would say. And then there's the active volcano that you can go take a look at, or you can walk through the national park, the Volcano National Park. Highly recommend that. I love that. And you can see turtles in the wild. Again, you don't disturb them, but you can see them in the Waikoloa area. They come up on shore where you can, almost every day, not very far from the main timeshares. Anyway, that's a summary. Hope that makes sense. Now, I'll do now a comparison. So let me first tell you about the criteria. Okay, now I'm going to go through the criteria. And again, this is my criteria. I don't know if it's the right criteria or the wrong criteria. It's the criteria I picked up with. And the first one is nightlife. That's dancing, interesting drink choices, those kind of things. Maybe movies could be probably thrown in there as well. And then the flip side of that is the most relaxing. I can do nothing if I want, which just, that's part of the Hawaii sort of slow down. The culture is a little slower, and you can embrace that and do the nothing. Tasting tours, that's sort of like taking advantage of what Hawaii has to offer with regards to farms and the process, so you can learn a lot about how certain things are done. I found that really kind of exciting, actually. Most tropical, that's kind of that balance of rain and vegetation, because the way you get the tropical vegetation is you get the rain. So it's kind of, I wanted to put that one in there because some people want to actually see the beautiful natural flora and fauna, and that's why I threw that in. And then there's the least rain. Really, I got plenty of rain where I am, or I want to go on vacation, not to be trapped by the rain. So I put that one in as kind of the opposite of the most tropical trade-offs. So that's the criteria. Now let me go to the chart where I actually break that down. All right, now here's the eye chart. Nothing like an eye chart. So let me first start with the nightlife. This is hopefully fairly obvious. Oahu's got the best nightlife because it's the big city. So you're going to see all that everywhere. It's got all the best, restaurants, got nightlife, everything you could imagine, just like any large city in the United States. It's a little bit of a Hawaii twist to it. Second, which might be a little surprising, I picked Hawaii because Kona is kind of a larger city. And it has a lot of restaurants and places to go dancing and bars and all that kind of stuff. So it's clumped together. I put it ahead of Maui, which, even though it does have a larger city, so it might be a little bit ahead, the main timeshares and hotels are on the other side of the island where it's a little more rural. So that's my logic for putting it third. Fourth is Kauai, where there is a little bit going on, but again, it's much more of a laid-back island. And last would be Molokai, which I think everything closes at 9 p.m., maybe a little later, but so I wouldn't call it quite the place for nightlife, and there's only one small town with a couple places. It's more just having places to go eat more than a nightlife. There's a couple bands here and there. And when it comes to most relaxing, kind of the flip side of that, Molokai wins hands down. In fact, if you're not interested in doing that, you might not want to go to Molokai because it's just really about relaxing. There's some nice things to see. There's a leper colony, a few things like that, but I'd put it there. Second is I put the Big Island because if you go to Waikoloa, you can just sort of hang out there, and there's the resorts are all inclusive. So I think that's a nice place to sort of do nothing, and there's just places to walk along the ocean right there. There's a lot more hiking than anywhere else. Third is Kauai, and that's really the culture of Kauai. It's really slow pace. Everyone, it's kind of nice, but it can be a little crowded on the roads because there's only really one main road. So that's why I put it. That was my trade-off there. Fourth was Maui, and that's just because the timeshares are often 8 or 9 stories tall. So even though you're in the middle of the ocean and the beach is there, you're still surrounded by a lot of people. So it didn't feel that relaxing. And lastly, hopefully, is obvious Oahu with the massive city. Then next, on tasting tours, the number one for me is the Big Island because of coffee tours. In fact, that's where it all got started, the Kona Coffee area. Macadamia, and they now have lots of chocolate tasting tours that you can do. They grow the beans there and they process them. Some really great tasting areas there. My second is Kauai because they have both coffee and rum tasting, and you can visit where they're actually making the rum, and there's even a train you can take through the area as well. Third is Maui. They do have some tasting, and there is quite a bit of farming. That's just Maui is one of the larger islands, so there is that opportunity. Fourth, I put Molokai ahead of Oahu. I'm sure there's stuff on Oahu, but Molokai had one farm that I went to that was a place you could sort of taste the vegetables and so forth. And then lastly is Oahu. Most tropical, that's kind of that balance. I put Kauai because it's the smallest island, so you kind of get a bit of rain there all the time. I put Hawaii second only because on the rainy side, Hilo, it's quite rainy, tropical, and so forth. There's a lot of botanical gardens and things like that you can see, even some private ones that you can walk on. Third on that is Maui. Again, the road to Hana was what I put it there, and they have black sand beach there. So, and then fourth is Molokai. Because it's a small island, it rains pretty much everywhere. It has a drier side, but it's quite nice. And again, it's tropical. To me, also has a bit of a relaxation inland. Oahu, I'm not saying it's not tropical. It's just so crowded. I don't know. It's hard for me to think of it as tropical. And lastly, least rain. I put the Big Island because Waikoloa is the driest part as far as I can tell. I didn't do this officially by looking at rain gauges. And then 2 is Maui. It also has a dry side, and it's a larger island. A third is Kauai, and that's probably a debate. Maybe Oahu would be true, but it's so crowded, and I think the sort of enjoying the relaxing part, I put Kauai ahead of Oahu. And then lastly is Molokai, just because of its size of an island. Anyway, I hope that helps. That's the eye chart. Let me tell you about where the timeshares are now. Okay, let's go through the timeshares, where they are. And again, I own, timeshares I own are Marriott, that includes the Vistana now, Hilton, which now includes the Diamond International, and Wyndham, which includes Worldmark. So I didn't include the Holiday Inns. I'm not that familiar with those. I just went with, I think, which are the top 3, which I happen to be an owner. So on Kauai, Marriott has 3 in the Poipu, Lihue area, one of which is a Sheraton, and then 1 in Princeville, which is the Westin. Hilton has 1 in Poipu from Diamond. Wyndham has 1 in Poipu, 4 in Princeville, and 3 in Kapa'a, one of which is a Worldmark. We go to Oahu. Marriott has 1, which is on the far side of the island. It's supposed to be very beautiful. Not been to it. There are 8 Hilton, and I was surprised. I actually went to the website, one of which is a Diamond Resort. Wyndham had 3 located there, no Worldmarks. Molokai, the only one I'm aware of is Kainani Kai, which I did a review of last week when I was there. Maui, Marriott has 4. They're all in Lahaina, 3 of which are the Westins, and 4th was original Marriott. Hilton has 2, 1 in Kihei, which is a brand new one. It's amazingly well done. It's my favorite city in Maui. And then 1 in Lahaina that they got from Diamond International. And then the Big Island, lastly but not least, was Marriott has 1, which is in the Waikoloa area. And Hilton has 4 in the same Waikoloa area. All of them are you can walk to from any one of those. The Marriott and Hilton are all within walking distance. And Wyndham has 6 in the Kona area and then 1 in the Waikoloa village, which is a bit away from the ocean. But they do have 7 in total. Anyway, that's the roundup of all the timeshares that I own and where they're located. Hope this was helpful. Please give my video a like and don't forget to subscribe.